Hello, ladies and gentlemen. We have another great show of the Four Guys Roundtable Show. It's me, Joe Theo, Darth Pat, AG Nitro, and Coach Jeremy.
I can never keep a straight face when you do these damn intros.
Well, I like to mix it up, do something different, change my voice, just make me a little weird. That's my personality, I guess. But yeah.
I pretty much figured out that the whole point behind him doing the intro was to make sure that he got us to all laugh. But,
It can't be the same every single time.
I like that. Don't change. No.
Okay. Oh, and real quick, I'm gonna just get this out of the way. Our unofficial sponsor of this evening, it's Hell or High Watermelon, freshly brewed in watermelons. I like it. Anyway, let's keep going.
If I liked watermelons, I might say I might like that, but I'm a little afraid to try that because it's got watermelon in it. So
you know the crazy part is when I'm drinking this, you don't initially taste the watermelon. You can barely taste it, but there is a little bit of an aftertaste, kind of with a little bit of watermelon in it.
Mm-hmm.
Tastes like Yingling Lager with watermelons, but I don't know. I have another can sitting here, so let's see how fast this one goes and the next one goes, and then. I'm not a lightweight like some people on this podcast.
Yeah, I'm wondering how I'm going
to feel
after my big mug of beer here. That's two in there. I could be feeling pretty fun by the end of this podcast.
Pat has something too. He's probably got some alcoholic stuff.
I am the only one currently. Oh, okay. I was going to say I'm not drinking.
This is Minute Maid sugar-free lemonade.
You might as well drink water.
He's high rolling tonight. He's high rolling. I just felt like it had to be a beer night. I don't know. I was just feeling the beer.
I think every podcast might be a beer night for me now.
I'm in the middle of two projects. Getting my little HGTV going on here. I'm building my own computer desk, which I'm almost done with.
Nice.
Custom computer desk. And then we needed a new kitchen table. So there's a store down here called Restore.
Nice.
It's a place. So if anyone doesn't know what that is, it's a place where people donate a lot of stuff. I'm talking about front doors, kitchen tables, furniture, all kinds of shit. You can find all kinds of stuff there.
Got a stove at one of those places.
Yeah. And sometimes you see the one we went to get this kitchen table. There was a contractor. He pulled up and he was like, "Hey, I got a whole bunch of extra stuff." He goes, "I can't use it no more for the job." And they were like, "Okay." And he had pallets of extra tile from 5 different jobs. So he was just unloading tile. And I was like, "Holy shit! I wish I had a house." I would have been like, "How much we selling this tile for?" But no, we found an old table. It's a legit nice square table, and it has extensions in the middle. Mm-hmm. And we already have chairs because the table we have is 12 years old, so it's just breaking, and I'm tired of fixing it. So I have got a new sander, and I'm sanding the whole thing down and refinishing it and all that stuff. It's kind of something I don't know I enjoy doing, building and refinishing stuff. So
and in about 3 days, I will get to see that firsthand because I will be going down to visit Theo.
Oh yeah, the kitchen table probably will not be. That's kind of semi-started.
I'll still get to see.
the computer desk should be finished by then. I'm hoping, at least.
So I will be traveling down to North Carolina to see Theo.
Fantastic.
Hey, just remember, the more pieces you have left over at the end, the better job you did.
I had to make a few adjustments today. I did, but. Yeah, I changed my mind on something, and I was like, I got some extra pieces. I can use it for something else. Oh, well, it is what it is. But yeah, that's what I've been doing this whole goddamn week when I have a chance to.
Yeah, speaking of projects, my wife and I, we finally decided, I ripped down an entire deck. This thing was a monster. It was 15 by 24. It was the whole back of our house and it extended past our house in the back. I ripped that down this summer, way back in May when we started having nice weather. And then we got a contractor in to do our patio. and he's just about done, and it looks fantastic. Like,
Ooh.
I'm excited for this damn thing to be done. Because he had so many other projects, other jobs he was doing, and I told him there's no timeline on ours. Just, when you get a chance, come over, get it done. So our job kind of got pushed to the back, so to say. So it was taking him a long time, but this thing's almost done. It looks beautiful. We got a nice wall. We're going to have a little planter area at the end of the patio, in between the wall and the patio.
Oh, sweet.
So, we're going to put up like maybe hydrangeas to make essentially like a wall so people can't see straight through to the street to the backyard. It's going to be really, really nice, and it's a nice big area. So when you guys are in the area, including you, Mr. Darth Pat, we can sit outside. It's got a built-in fire pit, so we got a fire pit to sit around and hang out, and drink brews and stuff with a sitting wall. So it's going to be, I'm so excited because I've wanted a damn outside area forever. And I'm like, I can't build this fucking thing because there is no way I'm going to do it right. Not with all the shit that you need and the knowledge that you need. I'm like, I can't watch enough YouTube videos to figure this shit out, right?
I mean, decks are good to a certain extent, but like those like patios like that with the cement and the fire pits, and you could just do more with them than you can with a traditional deck. And it's just, you get more out of it, more bang for your buck.
Hopefully I'll be coming to visit you, Jeremy, in like September.
Oh, yeah, we'll be sitting out by the fire pit then for sure. Mm-hmm.
So I have a question for Coach Jeremy. Did you win any of those medals with a broken freaking neck?
No. No. What I have behind me, I needed some decor. I was like, I'm looking, I'm thinking, I don't have anything behind me. I don't got the half nudie lady in the back of me.
You had jerseys,
no
though.
Pictures.
You had jerseys.
I rearranged my room, so I didn't want to put the jerseys back up. So what I do have here for all our viewers, and I'll explain for our listeners, I got a second place medal behind me for the basketball team that Theo and I coached together when we took second place. And then I have a first place medal on this side from the year that I took over, and Theo was my assistant, which is kind of funny. We switched flip-flop because Theo went up to the next level and then kind of came back down to help me out. And then I got my Spartan medal from when I ran a Spartan race last year, which was absolutely freaking insane because it was in Palmerton. You guys all lived here, so you know where Palmerton is.
Yep.
And it was up Blue Mountain. It was up Blue Mountain. So for anybody that's ever that's listening has ever ran a Spartan race, if you've ever run one of the mountain races, they are hard as balls. Like, they are straight up and then straight down eventually with heavy shit to carry and hard ass obstacles to do. So yeah.
I always wanted
so those
to try
are my
that,
medals.
but
Good for you.
Sure.
I'll pass.
Yeah, I did it with my brother-in-law, and I'm one of those people, like, I could have probably gone on ahead of him just because I don't know, physical conditioning, whatever it may be. I was able to do certain things a little bit easier than he was. And,
Gotcha.
We were both getting blown out of water by everybody pretty much. But, it's not a competitive thing. It's just try and finish. Try and do as much as you can. Unless, of course, you're running competitive, because there are people that do it competitively. And he's like, dude, just go ahead. Because he saw me getting ahead of him at one of the things. It was the sandbag carry. You had to go down the hill about 50 yards, turn the corner, and then come back up the hill 50 yards.
Damn.
Yeah, with a probably like 60-pound sandbag. And he was, we were both dying, but I was getting up there a little bit faster. He's like, just go ahead. I'm like, dude, like, I asked you to come on this. Like, I'm not going to leave you by yourself and in the dust. Like, that's just
like, okay,
rude.
bro, see ya. I'm out.
Leave
that's
no
just,
man behind.
Yeah, I was like, that's just, like, I'm thinking to myself, that's fucking rude. You ask somebody to come do this, they pay their hard-earned money to do it, and you're gonna leave them in the dust and make them do it by themselves. Like, that's kind of dickhead move. Yeah. So I was like, no, man, I'll stick with you. If I get done first, that's no problem. I ain't going for the best time in the world. I'm not gonna finish it in 45 minutes anyways, which was kind of crazy because in our aged group, which was the 40 to 45-year-olds, there was a dude that finished that shit in 45 minutes. I was like, holy balls, man, you are fucking super in shape. Like, because
He's training 7 days a week. Goddamn.
Yeah, because we finished in And about an hour and 50 minutes. So almost 2 hours it took us. But we did a lot of walking. We were kind of tired at one point, and we kind of walked a lot. So, but it was
cool that
fun.
you did that, though.
Yeah, and I would do it again. I think I would not do a mountain course. I would try and pick a little bit flatter course than a mountain course, but I'd definitely do it again. I want to try some of the other ones out there, like Bone Frog. There's the Bone Frog. There's Savage. There is Tough Mudder. So there's a bunch of different ones that have sprouted up since the Spartan race came about. And I think Tough Mudder actually was the original, and they kind of, I think they sparked the Spartan one to get going.
Yeah,
So
yeah, I believe so.
So
All right.
also,
What?
go ahead. Sorry.
You gonna
Let's
say
get
something, Matt?
rolling.
Get rolling.
Yeah.
What are we rolling? Some doobies? Smoke a little smoke?
We've already
You want to
established
smoke?
on an earlier podcast that only 2 of the 4 of us dabble in that ever.
Yeah, that was a lot of years
Right.
ago.
I
So
said
Theo and I
ever.
don't dabble into doobie anymore. But that's all right. Yes, we can get rolling. Should we get rolling and bring our listeners into the actual podcast? Unless
I
anybody
think
else
so.
has another story they'd like to share.
No, it's rated X. I don't want to go to Boom Boom Town today.
I have a story.
Oh, go
Okay.
ahead. I'm all ears.
Once upon a time, in
There we
a
go.
faraway land, Jeremy started the podcast.
Darth Pat has jokes today too.
Our podcasts are so much better when Darth Pat has jokes.
It
They really
is.
are. All right,
It's
so let's
funny.
get this party started.
There we go. About to say, I
Yes.
don't hear the podcast starting.
Yes. So before we do get started, though, we always have a nice public service announcement, and we do want to thank all our listeners that are, one, watching us on YouTube. We do appreciate it, and all our listeners that are catching us on iTunes, Spotify, and Stitcher. We do appreciate you guys tuning in. If you are watching on YouTube, though, we do appreciate you subscribing to the channel. Turn on the notifications so you don't miss an episode, and also give us a like. Drop a comment if you feel like commenting. We'd like to know what you guys think. We'd love to hear from you guys. We're doing this, and if you guys don't tell us, hey, you guys sound like shit, we don't know what to fix. We want to know if we sound like shit or if we're doing something good. So tell us, let us know. If you're catching us on iTunes, Spotify, or Stitcher, make sure you subscribe there too. Leave us a rating so we can help us jump up the charts. That way, other people that can hear us just like you are, they can enjoy us. If you're enjoying us, once again, it just helps us out. We're doing this for fun. We want people to have a good time, just like we are. With that being said, let's jump into our podcast and let's talk about wrestling promos. Oh, yes, the promo. And we got a couple different things we want to talk about today and with the promo. And we're going to start off with the evolution of the promo. Then we're going to talk a little bit about some wrestlers they're just good mic people. They're good on the stick. And then we're going to talk about the current state of the promo, what's going on right now, how we feel about promos in general, how they've been going. So let's kick it off with the evolution of the promo. And Theo, why don't you start us off with that, sir?
The evolution of the promo. Well, it's a promo. That's all I got to say. Thank you. Next.
That is a very wise thing. But it's a promo.
I need to take a sip of beer. So, so where should we start? I mean, promos, 70s. I don't know too much about the 70s.
80s. Yeah, probably the 80s.
Late 70s, I would say, because of superstar Billy Graham was doing some promos and stuff like that. And, Don Morocco. Trying to think who else was starting to do promos back then. I mean, you could say Dusty Rhodes because he is old at this point. I know he's passed away, but he was old. He was doing stuff in the 70s, and he kind of hit his niche though in his wheelhouse in the 80s though. Wow, the promo. How do I say? It seemed like you only had a select group of people back then doing promos, and they kept putting those same people on over and over again. And you had specific mouthpieces because, like, remember back then too, one of Darth Pat's favorite people, Jim Cornette was a good mouthpiece for groups, factions, in different wrestling organizations he was in. Let's see, the 90s was, the 90s I think is really where it kind of kicked off. Pretty much when WCW was kicking WWE's ass, and they had to figure out what to do. So, the Attitude Era comes about, and you have a lot of potty mouth, dirty promos with a lot of craziness going on in regards to that. Some fun times. Then the early 2000s wasn't too bad, but some company had to go PG-13 because of some goddamn wrestler named John Cena, just because he wanted to sell products to these fucking kids, these women, goddamn broads. Jesus Christ!
I salute you, but I've never been in the military.
Fuck them kids.
I'm only kidding, females. That was just a joke.
I was gonna say, Joe just cost us all 3 of our female listeners.
It's a interesting evolution. I think there's definitely a downside to it where you only had maybe 5 or 6 good promo people for a good stretch because of the PG-13. If you really wanted to go look for a good promo, you had to look elsewhere. You had to go to other wrestling organizations to find people there that were doing good promos. In regards to that, I don't know. Anyone else chime in on that one? It's kind of go in so many different directions. With this kind of
it was
topic.
The Attitude Era definitely changed everything. So promos were not always funny necessarily. I think that when we got DX and we got The Rock and even the NWO and WCW, they started being more about making people laugh and being funny. Whereas I think before that, there was some of that, but there wasn't an overabundance of that. Back in the 80s especially, they weren't really cutting promos to be funny. I don't really remember watching, other than watching DiBiase make people bounce basketballs and bark like dogs. I don't remember a lot of stuff back in the 80s or even the early 90s that was funny. Something changed where everybody was okay, being funny and potty mouth, like Theo said, the potty mouth and the racy stuff, the sexual innuendo and all that stuff. That being able to do all that stuff just opened up the doors for lots of other stuff that had never been done promo wise, because everything was kind of vanilla before the Attitude Era. Maybe a little bit before the Attitude Era it started a little bit, but it was a lot of vanilla stuff in the late 80s and early 90s, I think, to some degree.
It kind of went where you had Flair and Dusty doing very serious promos in the early 80s. And even in WWE, you had Roddy Piper's.
Right.
I guess you want to call them promos. You had Roddy Piper, but you had the Piper's Pit. And there's stuff they were doing that was very serious. And then the late, like AJ said, late 80s, early 90s, it kind of took a down. It went down. It was everyone was trying to be funny. You had Doink the Clown and other shit going on where it kind of was these promos are kind of shitty. Then you had the Monday Night Wars where you have a very good promo from Scott Hall coming out on a Nitro show, you want a war, you're gonna get a war. That's the biggest part of that promo, and it kind of I think took off from there with the battle between the two companies. WCW was cutting some good serious promos, and WWE had to figure out what the hell to do to compensate that, and you kind of put the Attitude Era in there, and DX just going off and doing crazy shit. And then after the Attitude Era, it kind of goes down a little bit because the whole PG-13.
The PG didn't really start until the end of the Ruthless Aggression Era, so there was 4 years probably there where.
Still, Ruthless Aggression was kind of weird because it was you're trying to have you have wrestlers try to cut a serious promo, but they have to watch their language, so it doesn't come off as good. So then you kind of go into the PG-13 where it's I think what changed for there is, and give credit to Cena, is where, being the rapper Cena and having kind of promo battles per se. And you see the kind of evolution of the promo battles where they're kind of dissing each other, things of that nature. And I think Punk took it another step further with the pipe bomb, because that took it to like talking half wrestling, but like real life shit going on backstage of like what wrestlers are really going through and speaking his mind, because that kind of kicked off, and you saw that like in the indie circuit and other wrestling organizations, things like that. And now it's kind of like still, it's a little bit, they're okay now. Now it's like more you're seeing a new crop, some veterans that are still doing it, and some new people coming up and really killing it on the mic.
Darth Pat, I would like to hear your take on what you think the evolution of the promo is, because you are like our resident historian. You seem to remember a lot of shit about a lot of wrestling stuff. So I'd like to know your opinion on, you know, what the promo was more like in the 70s, 80s to where it kind of has gone to in the Attitude Era, WCW times, and stuff like that. Like, I would like to hear your take.
Well, I think I don't necessarily disagree with anything that's been said so far. I really also feel that, yeah, promos didn't really start until the 70s. Like, prior to that, I mean, it's really hard to even find, like, say, promo footage of, like, say, Bruno Sammartino. You can find interviews with Bruno Sammartino, but, you know, it's like they're really, like, serious, and they're asking him about, well, you know, how's your training been going? What do you think of your upcoming opponent, like whoever it was, whether they were wrestling, you know, Ivan Koloff or Gorilla Monsoon or Haystacks Calhoun or whoever the hell it happened to be. To me, I think like the origins of the modern promo basically start in the 70s, and there's really three guys that I think of: Superstar Billy Graham, Dusty Rhodes, and Nick Bockwinkel.
That's the other one I couldn't remember.
Bockwinkel kind of personified the arrogant heel. Like, he was an extension really from Buddy Rogers. I don't know what Buddy Rogers was like as a promo. I don't think I've ever heard a Buddy Rogers promo. But Bockwinkel was really filling that, and it's from him that you get to guys like Ric Flair and Tully Blanchard in the 80s. Dusty, I mean, was Dusty. I mean, he was the guy, you know, telling you about how he was the perpetual, you know, babyface underdog, basically. And, you know, Hulk Hogan has said he borrowed a lot from Dusty Rhodes, and, you know, obviously plenty of other guys did. Billy Graham, though, was really the trendsetter, because he's the guy who basically, he was the cool heel. Like, I mean, when they did, they did like the career retrospective DVD about him in WWE sometime in the mid 2000s. They even called it, you know, 20 years too soon. I mean, they were just basically saying he was way ahead of his time. And, you know, you definitely saw so many guys borrow from him. Hogan, obviously. Jesse Ventura, obviously. I think Michael Hayes, you know, you can draw a lot of extension from Billy Graham. So those guys kind of started. Then when you kind of go into the 80s, you know, you got guys who were like I said, they were borrowing. And like I've mentioned a lot of those guys already: Hogan, Hayes, Ventura. Dusty's obviously still there in the 80s. And you got guys like Flair and Blanchard. The one guy who I felt was the true innovator in the 80s was Roddy Piper. You know, I really felt like, because he was the kind of guy that, obviously he was a heel for a while. I mean, pre-WWF, I mean, he was a heel, then he turned face when he was in, you know, Mid-Atlantic. And then when he comes to WWF, he goes back to being a heel for, you know, his first couple of years before he turns face again. But, you know, Piper's promos were all about like the unpredictability element. They were more about, sometimes it was about like, you know, he was kind of like the introduction of like the smart ass kind of character.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. Yeah.
Which really much more became, you know, much more prevalent in the 90s. But Piper was also about kind of setting you up and then swerving you really at the last second, whether it was when he smashed the coconut over Snuka's head, or, you know, when he started beating up that jobber guy that one time and everything.
Yeah, what was his hook? Well, I mess it up. Like when
the line, you mean?
Yeah, the line that he always threw out.
Just when they think they got the question, or they got the answers, I change the question.
That's what it was. Yeah, I love that.
That basically summed up what Roddy Piper's promo was like. So to me, like, those were a lot of the main guys in the 80s. I mean, Ole Anderson was also a good talker. I mean, If you ever want to really go back, and some people may not be too familiar with this, if you ever want to go look at the Ole Anderson Dusty Rhodes feud in Georgia Championship Wrestling in 1980, when Ole turned on Dusty in pretty dramatic fashion. You hear the promo surrounding that, though. They come off as being very, very real and very intense. So that was a good thing about that. Arn Anderson was a good talker. All of the Four Horsemen were good talkers.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think Joe touched on it too. A lot of guys in that era weren't necessarily talkers because they didn't have to, because they had the manager.
A real manager, which we don't really see anymore, but yeah.
Right. It's a completely lost art. The only guy who still does it anymore is Paul Heyman, and that's only for one guy. It's not like when these guys all had stables of guys. I mean, Cornette was one of the great heel manager talkers. Obviously, probably the best heel manager.
Bobby Heenan.
Was Bobby Heenan. Jimmy Hart was always good. I've heard a lot of people say that he was better when he was in Memphis than when he was in WWF. I haven't seen enough of his Memphis stuff to know for sure. Gary Hart, I think, is a guy who, again, some younger people may not recognize because he never was in WWF. And I think the last time he was majorly in WCW was the early 90s. But he was a really good talker. Like, even if you ever saw, if you happen to catch any old Global Wrestling Federation episodes on ESPN Classic, even when that promotion was kind of had nothing going on for it, other than they had a really young Harlem Heat and a young JBL at the time, and they had really no name talent because everybody had left. Gary Hart was still out there making you believe that he was really effective as a manager, so he was good. I know Matt mentioned DiBiase, or AJ mentioned DiBiase. Jake Roberts was another guy who I'd say you could kind of say was a little innovative in the 80s because he had a style that was all his own. It was that, cold, calculating, slow talking. He didn't have to be loud. He didn't have to be in your face, which was new because most of the guys at that time were yelling and screaming at you to a certain extent. I mean, Hogan did.
The 80s was a lot of yelling and screaming promos.
Yeah, Hogan and Piper did. Even guys like Dusty and Flair, they might start off like here for a volume level, but by the end of their promo, they're up here. Flair especially. So
the guy in the 80s, just for Savage, was the guy in the 80s for me that I really liked on the mic because I thought he was a little bit unique. The coffee cream of the crop. He had some really good promos. At the end of the 80s, he was the guy for me. You guys, we're all kind of enamored with Piper, where I wasn't as enamored with Piper. I didn't really like Piper that much. Was never really there with him. He was a good heel, but Savage was, I think, the first guy. Mm-hmm. When you're a kid, and I'm not trying to knock on Hogan, but his promos became the same thing. Watching him when I was a kid is not the same thing as watching him now, and he was basically saying this, and you could get away with that then. That's another way the promos evolved. I think that guys said the same essential thing over and over and didn't really fill in the gaps with other stuff, whereas when it evolved, you have to be able to fill in between the saying your prayers and your vitamins. You have to be able to fill in between that stuff. And Hogan just kind of did the same thing for years. And then it evolved to where Stone Cold and The Rock and those guys had to put stuff in between. So I just wanted to say something about Savage. Go on, Darth Pat.
No, that's a good point. And I was going to say, kind of when you kind of move on into the 90s, then there was a lot, I think, more about, you started to see a mesh of styles. Like Flair went to WWF, and WWF fans, I think at first didn't really quite know what to make of Flair's promo style because they were getting the Hogan, train, say your prayers, take your vitamins, the insane warrior rant. I mean, hey, say what you will about
talking about something, whatever.
And that his promos didn't make any sense. They had the intensity to them that it really didn't matter that they didn't.
He was a very unique person on the mic. I don't know if we've ever seen anybody quite like the Warrior.
So here's the thing. Let me jump in here real quick with the Warrior.
Between Savage and Warrior, but yeah.
Let me jump in here with the Warrior real quick because, when I was a kid and I watched the Warrior and he was saying, as a kid, I had no idea what the hell he was talking about. I'm like,
I don't even think we still know as adults, kind of, but
what Darth Pat said is the intensity. That's what made you pay attention to his promos. Like,
Yeah.
as a kid, you had no idea because he was talking about government and space and all kinds of crazy ass shit.
Parts unknown.
But his intensity made you pay attention to his promo, even though you had no idea what he was talking about. And that's a crazy thing. Like, he was promoing about pretty much nothing that made any sense.
No
But yet,
logical sense.
how much he was into his promo made you pay attention.
Wow, and
now as an
looked
adult,
cool. He looked
Now-
cool and he had the cool paint and everything. Warrior's
Right.
getup was pretty appealing.
But as an adult, you listen to him, you're like, you don't. What he's saying is like, what the hell? Where does this come from? What the hell are you talking about? Like this? Who are you wrestling? A Martian? Like what the fuck is going on? So now, as an
It's
adult,
like-
you have a different level of thinking about it. As a kid, you're just like, oh my god, what is this guy saying? This is crazy. Go ahead, Darth Pat. I'm sorry.
Last night about my match. Oh, they came down and told me that the heavens will help me out with Hogan. And if not, the earth will crush and I will have to be forced to. Like, what the fuck were you talking about, bro? But it was
And for our
fucking
listeners that are catching us on not YouTube, Theo was just doing a gorilla press. He's gorilla pressing
And-
the air.
funny.
Someday,
Doing the warrior thing. Oh, no.
someday we will go into more detail. Joe also played the Ultimate Warrior once.
Oh,
So,
yeah.
All right, Darth Pat, please continue, sir.
Well, just kind of touching one last thing on the Warrior. I mean, I think this is what Joe was kind of alluding to. The pre-WrestleMania 6 promo where he was talking about, putting the plane into the nosedive and everything. That might be that might be the most famous Warrior promo, but at the same time you're going, what?
I just remember being a kid and
Yeah, so I think again when you get into the 90s, there was definitely a switch. I think it became more about who could come off as being the coolest guy, like who sounded the coolest or who looked the coolest. And the Click guys, I think, were really kind of
yeah. Razor Ramon was cool.
I loved Razor with the toothpick.
Yeah, he was.
My name is Razor Ramon, and I'm the bad guy.
He was the epitome of cool.
It's still amazing that he claims, and I don't really doubt it, to be honest, because knowing the stuff you hear about Vince, that Scott Hall claimed that Vince had never seen Scarface when Razor started doing the Scarface character, and it's like 9 years after Scarface had been in theaters for the first time and everything. So
I would put it past him not seeing that movie, but
but so I think again it became about just kind of who sounded the coolest. There was like less emphasis about being like all right, Honky Tonk Man, when I get you in the ring in the Boston Garden on Saturday night, May 17th, you're gonna be slammed to the mat, and I'm gonna put the big leg. It wasn't about that. Like that wasn't what the promos were about anymore.
I'm sorry, did Hulk Hogan join us at some point in time?
Tell them, brother, tell them.
I didn't know Hulk Hogan joined us for a promo.
It became more about, and I'm gonna embarrass myself doing this, but it became more like hey, Heartbreak Kid, you think you're gonna climb that ladder before sometimes? Chico, you ain't gonna get one step up that ladder
I loved it.
because you just ain't oozing machismo.
I'm still trying to figure out. I'm gonna ask. Does anybody know what oozing machismo is? Like, I still cannot figure out what the hell that is.
My best theory is that it's some kind of an infectious respiratory disease. COVID.
Jesus.
I mean, the only other theory is that it means just drinking copious amounts of alcohol. I mean, because
Oh
not
man,
to make fun
I
of
think
Scott
Theo's
Hall,
looking that up for us. He looks very intense right there.
I remember someone asked. I had a conversation with somebody about this way back in the day, and we were looking it up and like just oozing. We originally thought like oozing machismo, like your look, you're more, how do I say, masculine, sexy. Your look is better, like stuff like that. So I'm googling right now. I want to see what it says.
So, even though it happened later in the 80s, or 90s, even Bret Hart, who cut a lot of the same promos for years, he finally even, we got to see another side of Bret Hart, and we got to see him change his get up, his best there is, best there was. Like, he had been doing that for years, and
Right.
he even changed and went, heel, and we got to see the best side of Bret Hart to me ever was when he turned heel.
Well, that was something I was kind of getting to. One other thing I just want to quickly mention about the '90s. One of the more underrated feuds that happened in the '90s, because it unfortunately was over kind of quickly, was the Hollywood Blondes against Ric Flair and Arn Anderson, where Rick and Arn are faces, which is kind of funny enough. But the Blondes were out there making fun of them as being old and past their prime and everything. Even though I don't think Arn was actually appreciably older than either Pillman or Austin. But
Yes.
Arn, like Conrad Thompson says in his podcast, Arn Anderson has looked 50 since he was 25.
So
and he does
here's
a podcast
okay,
with
go on.
Arn.
So the Urban Dictionary definition.
Urban Dictionary. Here we go.
A Spanish word. I don't think there's a direct English word translation. No, it's machismo, assholes. Like, why would you even put that sentence in there? So let's read this. Having an unusual high or exaggerated sense of masculinity, including an attitude that aggression, strength, sexual prowess, power, and control is a measure of someone's manliness. Also, a machismo man feels having these traits entitles him to respect and obedience from men and women around him. The belief in the right to dominate and control, including but not limited to controlling over women. Ooh, not good there.
I mean, that sounds kind of like, especially the way the Razor Ramon character was when he first started as a heel. So yeah, but what I was kind of saying there about, so we mentioned things started changing in the '90s. One of the things that you can really tell. I mean, so Hogan comes to WCW in '94, and he's still doing the red and yellow, train, say your prayers, eat vitamins, believe in yourself. For his first 2 years that he's there. And if you go back and you watch some of the early Nitros, which, so we're talking September 95 through, I think it was about March of 96 before he went on a hiatus, in some of the pay-per-views, I mean, he was never really fully embraced by the WCW crowd as it was, because the WCW crowd still perceived him to be the enemy because he came from up. Yep. But you definitely started to see there's this booing, and people just aren't buying it anymore. They're cheering more for Flair and also Sting and Savage, who were the other top faces. But they're a lot of times cheering for Flair and even the Giant over Hogan. So everything changes then, obviously, once Hall and Nash come in, and then once the NWO takes off. And you see it's it really is just boom, flipping the switch. You're going from one extreme to the other. And I think it's because that happened that you were able to see Bret Hart kind of change the way that he did, and it did then lead that's where again everything started to get blurred. It was was it real or was it fake? Because when Hall cut his first Nitro promo again, I remember watching that and shouting out to my dad Razor Ramon's on Nitro, and it's the way he was talking, it's I did seriously go, wait a minute, is this happening? Is this really, are they really invading? It's by that time I was smart enough to know better, but I still was going, but are they? So and WCW got ahead of the WWF there at the time too. I mean, see, the ironic thing is I'm hoping not spoiling anything for later, but two of the more groundbreaking promos that are out there were obviously the Bash at the Beach '96 promo and the Austin 316 promo. And I think what a lot of people kind of forget is that the Austin 316 promo was first. That happened the month before the Bash at the Beach promo. It's just that whereas Hogan being the third man and everything was such a dramatic, seismic change, Austin 316 was a slow build. You know,
Right.
it took a little while to get going, and it's like I think even because obviously he also won that King of the Ring, but I think like the next two pay-per-views he wasn't even on the damn card. So again, it took a little while, but those are the two promos that always kind of feels like really changed the game. And then the rest of the '90s they really did feel about being who could be raunchier, who could be more suggestive, who could be more vulgar, that kind of stuff. So it really did change everything on a dime, and it's like I guess maybe we got like Vince Russo to thank for that. I don't know, but it's so it all kind of went that way, and then really ever since then, I don't feel promos have been as strong. There have been good promo guys. I think we've mentioned a bunch of them. Rock, Jericho, Cena, Austin. Triple H has had his moments on the promo. Like obviously, there was that era of Raw where it's like, oh, we're gonna start with a 20-minute Triple H promo tonight.
So true.
But then you move to to guys like Cena, obviously. But then I feel like Cena was like the last like truly great promo guy in the sense of like from like when he started. Now, there's probably a couple other guys you could throw in there, like Punk, but I kind of would say like he started before Cena, even though his WWE career didn't. And I mean, Daniel Bryan's proven to be a pretty good promo too, but I don't think Daniel Bryan's on the same level as some of these other guys. And
I don't know. I don't know about Daniel Bryan. I don't know if I'm there with that one.
He's been one guy that's been able, I think, to really kind of captivate the audience in a lot of ways. Miz has been like one of those kind of sneaky, underrated promo guys, but his character's been pretty one note for most of his tenure. His face turn from like last year and everything, notwithstanding, he has been doing kind of the same thing for about 10, 12 years now. So, I mean, he's been good at it, but yeah. And I don't know if I'm jumping the gun here. We're talking about the status of promos today. I think there is a reason for why I feel like Cena's like and Punk are like the last truly great promo guys.
We're gonna talk about the state of promos in a little bit.
So I think I just want to kind of leave it there. But I know I just talked for a long time, but to me that's kind of where I feel like the history of the promo was and who I think really some of the best promo guys have been.
Yeah, you could say the promo kind of started as essentially like a way for guys to talk about their upcoming match and who they're going to be fighting. Yeah, essentially a way to promote themselves. Before that it was essentially interviews, like athletes have interviews, and then it turned into trash talking. In the 80s, more of a trash talking. I'm going to do this to you. You're not going to be able to do anything to me. We're going to fight on this date, promoting the time when they're going to fight. And then turned into
the house show.
Yeah. And then it turned into the comical, raunchy, dirty stuff. And now we're in a much different age, which we'll talk about in a little bit, because the current state of the promo. So that kind of just sums it up for everybody. And everybody had some really good points to make. I just wanted to summarize it all up for all our listeners as far as like how it kind of evolved and where it started from. In a much more condensed version. Because I didn't have anything to add. I couldn't add anything to all that. It was just too good by the rest of you guys. So
we get to the Attitude Era then, and then that's when we start getting these guys who are like all-time great guys.
Yeah, and we're going to talk about next. Our next topic we're going to talk about is the individual wrestlers that are really the good mic skills, the guys that just could really talk on the stick. Before we do that, though, I just want to do a quick public service announcement, and that's to say thank you for all our listeners, whether you're catching us on YouTube, iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, wherever you're catching us. We do appreciate you listening. And if you are catching us on YouTube, though, please make sure you're subscribing to our channel, turning on those notifications so you don't miss a single episode, because we are coming to you every single week, as well as making sure you're giving us a like. Leave a comment. Love to interact with you guys. If you're catching us on iTunes, Spotify, or Stitcher, leave us a rating so we can jump up there so people like yourselves can hear us, get entertained, because that's what we're here for. Just to everybody have a good time, enjoy yourselves, sit back, kick back, and kind of forget about the worries of your day and listen to us kind of bullshit and babble a little bit. So let's move on. Let's talk about individual wrestlers that are good on the stick. And I'd like to kind of start off.
You forgot to mention Mount Rushmore at the end of the show.
Holy crap, I forgot that twice, didn't I? Oh, how dare I? And please.
It's that beer you're drinking.
Yeah, it's the beer. I've forgotten everything.
It's crumbling.
So, yes, please stay tuned to the end of the show where you are going to hear the Mount Rushmore for this week's podcast, which is going to be about wrestling and about promos. But you got to stay tuned to the end to find out who it's going to be on Mount Rushmore. Now, let's talk about individual wrestlers that are good on the stick, who can really just talk. I want to start this one off because I'm going to talk about my favorite wrestler to ever hear, and that is The Rock. Rock, in my opinion, is, I don't want to say is the greatest, but is probably one of the best people.
He is.
Okay. And just so everybody knows, me and AJ, we're big Rock marks, big time Rock marks.
It doesn't even matter about that. He is.
But he is by far probably the best that I've ever seen talk on the mic. There is, after he got out of the Rocky Maivia stage and it got into being in the Nation of Domination. Oh my God, I almost forgot about the Nation. Jesus mighty. When he got into the Nation of Domination, that's when he started to evolve his game and the mic skills. I mean, one of my favorite promos that I ever saw from him is, there's a lot of them, but this is probably one of my favorite in his early days, is when he's doing the promo and he's giving everybody Rolexes in the Nation of Domination. And he says to Mark Henry, he's like, yeah, big boy, I know we got to get a couple extra links for you because but the Rock's got you. And then he goes to Farouk and he's like, I got a special gift for you, Farouk, a special gift. And Farouk's like bewildered. He's just looking and he's like, what the hell did you get me? Guys, it's completely different from everybody else. And he opens this damn thing up and it's a picture of The Rock. He's like, that's right, The Rock got you a picture of The Rock to put on your wall. I'm like, oh my God, like this is just over the top, like ridiculously absurd, but it was so innovative to me, just funny, engaging, and he got some real heat from not only he got heat from the people that he was trying to in the ring, and it made people like all of a sudden know that he was no longer going to be a bad guy. He was turning into a face. Like that's the kind of promos that he could cut. And he could switch it on a dime too. When he didn't feel the crowd was behind him, he could switch it on a dime and turn into all of a sudden, okay, I got to be a bad guy. Evidently, I got to turn this into a bad guy promo.
He was one of the first. He was like, and I'm not saying I never saw it before him, but he was that first guy who was so good at what he did. They had no choice but to turn him face. He was a heel, and everybody was popping for his promo. So they got to the point where they had no choice with him. He was so good at what he did, they had to turn him face because everybody was cheering for him when he was cutting promos and he was doing the people's elbow and that stuff. He was so good at what he did. He was the first person. A lot of people followed, but he was that first guy I really saw as a heel who was so good at what he did, they had to turn him face because the people were all cheering for him a year later or whatever. They're like, I've never seen somebody control a crowd like him. Not Austin, not Hogan, not anybody. That dude controls the crowd more than anybody I've ever seen. He comes up with the most ridiculous things to get the crowd to say, and they fucking say it. And some of them are funny. Some of them have been a little bit dicey. But he just takes two words and puts them together, and he's like, the crowd's going to chant this, and it's going to be trending worldwide in 5 minutes.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he was unique. He was a one-of-a-kind kind of mic skills guy. He was a one-of-a-kind. And then there's a lot of those guys that during their time in wrestling, were one-of-a-kind guys on the mics. And The Rock was definitely one of them. Stone Cold was another one. Whether you liked him or not, I know, AJ, you're not a big fan of Stone Cold, but he was another one in that same time frame that could invoke a crowd to hate him or love him. And he kind of had the same effect, not because of his mic skills at the time, but because of the character that he played. Right. They had to do the same thing for him. You can't have the heel getting pops for because what he's doing in the ring and what you all of a sudden we got to change your face there. Everybody's popping for you and you're supposed to be the bad guy, not because of what you're saying, but because of what you're doing. We got to change your face. So now we're going to have you beat up the boss.
I think the difference between the two of them was Austin. He didn't succeed when they tried to turn him heel, whereas The Rock, when they needed to turn him heel, he succeeded. So I think that's where the difference was between the two of them. Like Austin, they tried to turn him heel and it didn't work because I don't think he knew how to do that anymore. I don't know what happened. But when they needed The Rock to go Hollywood and turn heel, he had no problem doing that. And like you said, Jeremy, he could switch on a dime and just be face heel. I think he's the best face heel guy I've ever seen. Like his promos were almost as good when he was a face as they were when he was a heel. And there's not a lot of guys who were good at both sides of it. He was the best at he was the closest to being good on both ends as I've ever seen, like on a consistent basis.
Yeah. And then you got to look at Ric Flair. Now, I haven't gone back and seen a lot of like NWA or, WCW stuff or any of the other wrestling organizations he ever wrestled in, because I know he was kind of a journeyman in the early days, because that's just what you did. You travel from different promotions to get as much money as you could, because, hey, if you didn't do it, you were living on freaking potatoes.
He was special. He was very special, too.
But he, from what I got to see on YouTube as far as promos that people put up there on YouTube in his WCW and what I've seen in early WWF days before it became WWE, and even WWE, some of the WWE promos that he did in his later years, he was great. He could really move a crowd too. Like he was very special in being able to move the crowd. I mean, what was it? What the hell was his tagline when he was in WCW? Jesus, I'm airplane ride. No, jet flying.
Kiss stealing.
It was jet flying, limousine riding, kiss stealing, wheeling dealing.
Son of a gun.
Like he used that for a long time.
I know, and he used it for a long time. But I mean, come on, like that is like one of the primo like taglines, and it worked. Like he emphasized that character everywhere he went. Everything he did was all about his character, and he promos. He lived in his promos. You could feel it, you could hear it. And it was special. He was special with it.
The ultimate sign of respect is when somebody mimics you, like Jay Lethal, and does a promo and has a woo off. To me, that's the ultimate sign of respect. I'm using this to talk about that promo. That's the ultimate sign of respect. When somebody can mimic you, and that promo is amazing. And I was watching it as it happened. Like, holy shit. This is fabulous. Thank you, Jay Lethal, for being able to mimic Ric Flair and do the knee drop on the jacket.
That from start to finish, like the promo, Jay Lethal doing his imitation of Flair, Flair giving it back to him, and just all the way to the end. Like
when he's like, oldest ride, longest line, and Lethal's like, they're gonna shut that ride down. I'm like, this is great. You can't. That's one of the best promos I've ever seen. That might be the best non-WWE promo I've seen, other than maybe the Hogan heel turn. That's right up there.
Well, yeah, and that was his other thing. You're gonna take a ride on Space Mountain tonight,
And he's like,
down,
in that Jay Lethal one, he's like, that fat lady out there wants to ride Space Mountain, and he was like gyrating to ladies on the ropes. Only 70-year-old Ric Flair would be doing that.
Yeah, like that. So, listeners, go back and watch that promo. Go watch the Jay Lethal, Ric Flair TNA promo. Just it's gold. It's a gold. It's one of those golden moments that'll never be recreated ever.
No.
Darth Pat, who's one of your favorites that you've seen cut promos?
I mean, I think I've mentioned most all of them already. There's a few guys I think I forgot to mention at various times. Like I thought Rick Rude was a good promo guy, which was always kind of mystifying as to why they paired Bobby Heenan with him. And I know, of course, Rude didn't like that.
He didn't need a mouthpiece. He was pretty good.
It's just because I think it had more to do with when he came into the WWF, which was, I want to say it was mid-late 87. I think if you were to run down the heel roster at that time, everybody had a manager if they were a heel. So it didn't matter who they were. I think that's the way it was, but I could be wrong. And I mentioned Edge and Christian. You know, they were always good with promos. And
let's go. Let's take a step back though to Rick Rude, because Rick Rude, since you mentioned him, I remember like his tights, like his getup, was freaking fabulous.
When
like
he
the
had
picture of himself on his ass.
When he had Jake the Snake's wife on his pants, that was priceless.
Yeah,
and
his
they had,
his all you white trash hillbillies sit down so the ladies can see what a real man looks like. That was priceless.
They legitimately got sued over that from somebody in some city, and I can't remember which city it was. I'd have to try to look it up. And so like whenever they went back to that city, he had to like tone it down. That to me, that's kind of amazing, you know.
Wow, people were getting butt hurt even back then.
Yeah, that's what it is. It's like when people talk, I don't want to make this into a discussion of today's socio-political climate, but when people talk, we all know what those buzzwords are. They say like, "Oh, this didn't happen back in the day." It's like, yeah, it did. It was just not talked about on 24-hour cable news because that didn't exist. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I mean,
I'm, just as an example, like when they would make fun of the sports teams, like I'm a Yankees fan, and when somebody made fun of the Yankees in a promo, it was usually funny, and I thought it was hilarious. I wasn't like, "Oh, fuck you." Like I appreciated that stuff, no matter what sports team they were making it about. Usually, it was something funny, and I was just enjoying it from that perspective instead of, when I go to stuff here and they make fun of the fans in Cleveland, I'm like, well, I hate Cleveland, so you can make fun of them all you want. It's hilarious to me.
All right, so you were saying Edge and Christian.
Edge and Christian were quite entertaining. Obviously, the 5-second poses became, pretty funny. And you talk about making sports teams. The one that I always remember is when they along with Kurt Angle, mocked Scott Norwood's missed field goal from Super Bowl 25. Being a Giants fan, therefore the beneficiary of that, I could always appreciate that. And somebody else I don't think anybody's mentioned so far was Mick Foley.
Foley. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna say Foley. You didn't really get a lot of chance to see it in WCW because they were always kind of depicting Cactus Jack as being like, kind of an insane monster. But I think when he got to ECW, he really showed you something else, and his promos were pretty one of the kind. And then to in my view, successfully carry off 3 different personas, and to even have some of those personas go back and forth, because Mankind started as a heel and became a face, and Dude Love started as a face and then became a heel at one point. So I think that always worked really well. And obviously, that's the reason they would bring him back as a commissioner and stuff like that, just because, he was Foley is the master of the cheap pop.
He's overrated. I think Foley's overrated personally. So,
I mean, he's obviously the master of the cheap pop, but that's also kind of become like his specialty. Like whenever you see Foley, come to town and cut a promo, that he's going to do that. But I mean, I also, one of the things that Foley did that I always remember pretty fondly is when he did the heel turn in 2006. Wow, for when they did the second One Night Stand and everything, because he was taking like a very particular point of view, and it was like one of those things that were like, in his mind, he's not a heel kind of thing. He was saying, I love WWE, fuck ECW, that kind of thing. So It's one of those nuanced kind of things that I think only certain people can pull off, and I thought he did. So I've always liked Foley, but I think most of the other guy I think we can think of, I really think we've already mentioned.
Darth Pat, do you have a nice Dude Love promo for us that you could cut? Because we know you can do Dude Love.
Not
Come
that I
on.
not that I feel like I can do just off the cuff though, because
What?
I'm not as I don't feel like I'm quite as in tune with like that voice and that character as I am.
I mean, Foley was in one of the greatest promos of all time. He was in This Is Your Life, and that is that's one of the highest rated segments in like Raw history, that 15-minute segment. And I think The Rock did most of the groundwork in that promo. I don't think Foley did a lot. I think that was mostly The Rock, but Foley was in one of the best promos of all time. But like, I mean, that promo, we got Poontang Pie that night, so it doesn't even matter what else happened in that promo. When he dropped the Poontang Pie line, that was gold.
I was
in that
using
promo.
Poontang Pie before he was, so I'm taking that shit.
Foley's job in that promo was really to be the straight man.
I know.
And at the time, like, you know, Mankind had become like a little kind of corny and stuff like that.
Mhm.
So he was the perfect straight man for that particular promo.
Right. And as far as Foley goes, it for me, like, you really had to listen to his promos. You couldn't just, it wasn't you weren't going to get the pops, like, especially was like
Yeah.
was Mankind, until he like started doing the intentional pops for, you know, we're here in, you know, this town, hooray for this town, you know, those kind of cheap pops. You really had to listen to his promos. And if you listen to his promos, he was really saying something, like, and, you know, he played the character very well. So his promos came off very different when he was Mankind compared to Cactus Jack or compared to Dude Love. So if you paid attention to him, you could get what he was trying to say. But if you were just looking for the entertainment value, I can understand AJ being like, yeah, I think he was overrated, because he wasn't trying to be the entertainment promo guy that was left to The Rock, to Triple H, to Steve Austin, you know, to all those guys. He was trying to be the more deranged, intense.
Foley had some good promos. I just don't think he had tons of them. I think he had a few, like, scattered ones. I could pick out some.
These ECW ones were better.
I was gonna say, I think a lot of Philly is good, but maybe say better promos.
Okay, that's fair.
Yeah.
Okay, that's fair.
ECW, like, especially the you know, the Kane Dewey promo. That's kind of the one that I always think of most, because you could really tell that he took that one personally.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So I think that Chris Jericho is another guy who I really think is like upper tier. I don't know if I was there 10 years ago, but now in AEW, that guy has recreated himself like 5 times. Like, I don't think we've seen anybody in wrestling reinvent themselves more than Chris Jericho has. He keeps finding ways to reinvent himself, and he tweaks his character, and he's still so good on the mic. Like, he's going to be an announcer when he's done, because he's so good at what he does. That's why, like, I went back and watched any promo I could find that had The Rock and Chris Jericho in it. Those two guys were gold. Anytime you put those guys in a promo together, they had 3 really good promos. The first night Jericho was on Raw, like, that promo was fabulous. And
his debut.
to be, for The Rock to be okay with that, like, The Rock, I'm sure, had to okay, you know, Chris Jericho coming out, you know, and interrupting him. I'm like, that was probably for Jericho. He was probably like, holy shit, I get to go out on my first night and I get to get It Doesn't Matter by The Rock. How cool is this?
I think one of Jericho's to me, that's his second best promo.
Okay.
I think his best promo was his 1004 move promo in WCW.
With Dean Malenko, where he had the list,
The original list. Like, I just, like, him debuting on Raw was cool, you know, like the stuff with The Rock, but I just found that promo just hilarious, and just the way he delivered it, it was great. Like, that was the start of, like, him. I don't want to say the start, but that was, he had a lot of other good things that he did in WCW too. And you want to speak, I mean, this is kind of like going off topic, like, he commentates on AEW, right? So I was watching on the network an old, I can't remember the show. It was an old WCW pay-per-view. And I don't know why he was doing this, but they were having like a battle royal or something was going on, and all the guys were coming out, and he's standing on the stage, and like he's announcing every single wrestler, and he's like throwing tidbits and making fun of them and talking shit on them, and he's just going on, and it's like making fun of their outfits, something about their moves, their gimmick, like every guy came out, and he's just going on and on. He's standing there with the mic just doing it, and I was like, what the fuck? And I rewound it. I'm like, I gotta watch this again because I missed some stuff. It's just hilarious.
He was like, he became the master. Like Michaels did it once, but Michaels isn't from Canada. Jericho became the master at going to Canada and starting to make the crowd think he was with them, and then he would shit on them and be like, Canada sucks. Like Jericho did that more than once, where he played nice to the Canadian fans and then flipped on them just to be a dick.
Yeah.
I real quickly, going back to the 1004 hold promo. A couple things about that still tickle me to this day. First of all, the guy
tickles me.
The guy he beat in the match right before he did that promo was freaking Marty Jannetty. The third move he said, like every other move he said, was armbar. Number 3 on the list was the moss-covered 3-handled family Gradunzel, which I believe is something, and I believe this is honestly true, is something out of a Dr. Seuss book.
Yes.
So it wasn't a real move, but I believe I've heard that in the years since, somebody on the indies created a move and named it that. So
Nice.
That's pretty hysterical. And then the other thing too was, of course, like they like cut away to commercial, then they come back from commercial, and he's on like move like 650 by that point. And you've got, I want to say it was Mike Tenay, Tony Schiavone, and either Larry Zbyszko or Bobby Heenan in the booth. And Tenay is being all serious, like all of a sudden saying like, well, what was that last move that he said? And Schiavone's just like, I don't care. So like you got like the announcers arguing with each other over it.
There was
really ended it, but it was that promo was one of those ones that really was kind of ahead of its time too, I think.
Yeah.
And because go ahead,
wasn't he going to, he either fought or was going to be fighting Dean Malenko, who is the man of 1001 holds, right?
Right.
Yeah.
That's exactly that's why I remember that one.
I mean, and he and Malenko had a great feud at that time, so yeah.
Yeah, they did.
So there was another promo that I saw The Rock and Jericho do, and that one is memorable to me because we tried to mimic that one, and Pat was actually the interviewer during that, and Jeremy was playing The Rock.
27 takes later.
And yeah, and that was the one where Jericho and The Rock are trying to steal each other's lines. So like Danny was playing Jericho, but we had me then come in and interrupt it as John Cena. So we changed it a little bit. But that's the one, Jeremy, where he's like, the whole Jericho family, Jimmy Jack Jericho with the iron lung and Grandma Jezebel with the dirty panties. Like, and Jeremy did a really good job on that. Like, but Danny's the one that kept screwing up because Danny didn't like being given a script. But like, we did a pretty good job. Like when I go back and watch that promo, I'm like, wow, we did a really good job. And then when I saw The Rock do the one with the coach where he makes him sing, I remember you doing that with Pat with Nick Bischoff, and that's where we stole that from. You were like, fans, would you like to hear Mick Bischoff sing my favorite Neil Diamond song?
Oh, Jesus.
And the Rock did so many of those promos with the coach where he made the coach make an ass out of himself. Like he made him dance, he made him sing, and the coach always like played right into that. Like The Rock was always picking on, it was Michael Cole, Kevin Kelly. He was picking on whatever announcer it was, and he picked on him over and over and over again.
Well, yeah, he asked Michael Cole at one point in time, are you looking at the people's strudel?
I thought he asked Lillian that.
No, he's like, you get wet with perspiration. Like he said that to Lillian too.
Yeah. He asked Cole that too at one point in time.
He did. He definitely asked Cole that. He's like, turn around.
But yeah, so Joe.
Yes.
What other people would you have to throw in there that we haven't really talked about in depth as far as promo and mic skills?
Do you know who's good? Vince McMahon.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
I think one of his best promos was the Life Sucks promo.
I don't
But
remember
like
that one.
he was that the one with DX or DX people were in that one? I don't remember the whole thing. I remember that was the Life Sucks promo was one of his better ones. But like he was good on the mic.
He was.
No matter what it was. Of course, heel Vince is always good on the mic, but he was ingrained into a lot of different feuds. With The Rock, with Cena, or CM Punk with
DX.
Austin.
With DX.
Yeah, DX.
When they dressed up like Shane and Vince, that was hilarious.
I mean, there was he had a lot of feuds.
So
He just had a lot of feuds with other wrestlers and like his heel promos and stuff like that and things of that nature. He was really good with that. I think he's like one of the best non-wrestler / non-manager / mouthpiece guy. Like the owner of the company was out there cutting good promos with a lot of the top guys and things of that nature in different feuds. So I give credit to Vince, man. He did some good damn work over the years.
I was gonna say that's kind of a short list of like you're talking like non-wrestler, non-manager guys. I mean, your list then basically becomes McMahon, Bischoff when he was running WCW, and Heyman was running Eastwood.
Yeah,
Bischoff was good on the mic, and he did it first. But talking about Vince on the mic, obviously he was arguably really the best heel of all time too. If you ever listen to Cornette talk about the Brett screwed Brett interview, and Cornette's always like, well, Vince thought he was going to be the baby face after all that.
Nope.
Wrong.
We're like, no, you're the heel.
Like, I'm fucked up.
So yeah, we could just go down a list forever, guys. I mean, literally there are so many people. I mean, I want to kind of go back to one that AJ mentioned. That was the Macho Man, Randy Savage. While he doesn't necessarily have a lot of memorable promos, he definitely had some very cool taglines, some things that he put in almost every promo, and just the ooh yeah, brother, that kind of shit. Like just
snap into the Slim Jim.
Just that stuff. And let me tell you, Gorilla, or no, not Gorilla. He never got interviewed by Gorilla, but Mean Gene. Let me tell you something, Mean Gene. With that's that voice that he used, just made his promos, like when he started his promos off, and having Miss Elizabeth there, and even if they weren't
hand up,
he always, and doing the fingers and just. That those made his promos, in my opinion, even if they weren't like funny or, the most invoking, they made him interesting because of the kind of character that he was. And I think that's kind of an underrated thing in promos, is the kind of character you are. It's not just always about what you say. I mean, what you say is probably 90% of it, but some of the visual stuff that you do, and I think that's what kind of made The Rock, he could really talk, and he had the
eyebrow.
The visuals that you were always doing, the eyebrow, he was always doing something with his hands, that's where the Macho Man kind of made his promos a little bit better than probably what they would have been if he just stood there and talked to everybody, more like an interview. And same thing with the Warrior. That's what made his promos kind of weird too, because he was always very animated and intense. But surprisingly, we didn't really talk about Hogan.
Because his promos were vanilla before he got to WCW. He said the same, like Pat, we have both alluded to him kind of saying the same thing over and over for a long time.
I agree.
His promos were of a certain type.
They worked at the time.
Yeah, they could be repetitive in nature. That's exactly right, that they worked for the time and everything.
But there was one promo that I was watching, and I caught this on the network the other day because I was trying to get, because my son has like all our old like little plastic like spring-loaded action figures from wrestling when we were kids, me and my brother, and he has a Brutus the Barber Beefcake one, and he's like, "Who's this, Dad?" I was like, "That's Brutus the Barber Beefcake," and I love Brutus the Barber Beefcake.
I like Beefcake.
He wasn't bad at promos either back in the 80s.
But there was one where him and Hogan were on a promo, and I think it was
before they fought Savage and Zeus.
Yeah, I think that's. But that was actually a really good promo. He's talking about riding the Harleys up and down the up and down the West Coast and shit. And it's funny because the barber doesn't say much in that promo, but what he says, he's like, I like the scissors and I like the steel and I can't wait to cut you up. It's like, what the hell? Is the barber insane? Like, I don't remember him being an insane person, but he sounded
that sounds like something a dastardly brother would say. That's what that sounds like to me.
I think the thing with Hogan is like his promos kind of they did get vanilla over time. He had very good interviews with Mean Gene and other guys. His interviews were really well done. I think he struggled as wrestling
innovated
and was seen more on a weekly basis. He struggled with the crowd and the people trying to change it. And I think the heel turn was the best thing for him, because it gave him a whole new platform and a whole new avenue to explore that he really didn't do before. And then that's where he kind of started to really take off.
I watched one that I was at in Philly. I watched one where it was when Rock was the heel, and it was like the night after he beat or like it was around when he was going to fight Hogan. And he was like, The Rock was via satellite and Hogan was there. And The Rock was such a dick to Hogan. He just was like, and go ahead and talk. Like, he kept doing that to Hogan. He's like, 3, 2, 1, you're on. And that's the one where The Rock is like, do your hulking up and say your prayers and eat your vitamins. And I was laughing so hard when I was there because he made so much fun of Hogan. And Hogan was just kind of sitting there doing his red and yellow promo still. And The Rock was making fun of him like the whole time via satellite. And all the people there were cheering for Hogan, of course, and I was not. So I remember him like making fun of Hogan. He's like, go ahead, rip your shirt off.
Classic stuff.
It was Philly, too, and he was like, I'm going to go get me a Philly cheesesteak from wherever. And then he's like, nah, those cheesesteaks suck. And somebody was in the background, and he's like, this was right after I think the Eagles lost to Tampa Bay, and he's like, she's making me Tampa Bay tofu.
I remember that.
And he's like eating it, and he's like, this tofu's so good. Screw that cheesesteak.
Oh, funny.
No, that's why I say the promos, as far as like being able to go back and talk about different people that were really good on the mic. I think we hit a lot of probably the really good ones that we remember, and some of the guys that maybe some people don't remember being so good on the mic because there's been so many people. So let's do a quick public service announcement, and then I think we should move into our next topic. Darth Pack, go ahead.
Yes, we don't really need to elaborate on this, but I'm just really curious to ask this question of all of you. Who do you think was the guy who got the most mic time and did the least with it?
Most mic time and did the least with it.
Roman Reigns.
Roman Reigns. I was thinking Roman Reigns, too.
I was curious if you guys were thinking Roman. Some other guys that kind of pop into my head like that are like Lex Luger.
Yeah, definitely.
Oh my God.
Rick Steiner. I don't think Rick was ever that great on the mic.
No.
Shoot, there's somebody else I just had in mind.
Roman's had his moments like once or twice, but Cena tore him up. Like when Cena and Roman did those promos, like Roman got him once, but Cena fucked him up in those promos.
I mean, he definitely did, and then that's going to be something I want to talk about when we get to our last section. But also think about this: Roman's best ever promo was 5 words long.
Yeah, talk about the Yard promo.
This is my yard now.
Yeah, I think the other person we really...
that night after WrestleMania, he got booed for like 15 straight minutes. He just let them kept booing him. He let them kept booing him. And then he finally just said, "This is my yard. This is my yard now." Dropped the mic and walked away. I was seriously one of the best promos.
They should have turned him heel then, and they didn't.
No, they yeah.
Somebody else we didn't really talk about was Bully Ray with the Dudleys, because Devon.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I was talking about good guys there again.
Yeah, Devon was just there, but Bully Ray was he was ahead of the time too with his promos in ECW and just a promo guy in general.
Booker T too. Booker T, I think when he got to WWE, Booker T was pretty good on the stick too. I'm not saying all time, but he was entertaining.
Oh, here's another guy I just thought of since you mentioned Booker T, since they tagged for a while. I don't want to say that he was a bad promo necessarily.
Goldust?
No, it seemed like it took several years before we finally realized he did have a certain amount of mic skills. Now it would be RVD.
Yeah.
He was high all the time. So yeah,
Oh, another
What am I
guy.
supposed to say?
Another couple of guys who were always really good on the mic, but again, their best work was by far in ECW would be Shane Douglas and Raven.
Yeah, Shane Douglas. Raven was that weird one too, where like he would just talk in like cryptic shit, but people were captivated by the cryptic, crazy talk. Shane Douglas, he was another one too. I forget about him. He had very good. He had good promos. He did some good stuff at WCW too.
He was good, but yeah, it was mostly just about what he did in ECW. So
yeah.
All right, so
Go ahead.
real curious. I was going to say we can kick it back to the public service announcement now.
All right. Quick public service announcement for all our viewers and listeners.
Let's see if he gets it right this time.
And thank you for listening. We do appreciate you guys tuning in, no matter where you're catching this. We do appreciate it. If you are following us, though, on YouTube, please make sure you are subscribing, you are liking the episodes, and you are clicking the notifications button so you never miss an excellent episode of this crazy-ass podcast. Give us a like. Leave a comment. We'd love to know what you guys think. Please, if you love us, we want to know. If you think we're shit, well, we'd like to know that, too. But if you're going to tell us that we're shit, at least tell us why we're shitty. All right? So, if you are catching us...
66 on your ass.
If you are catching us on iTunes, Stitcher, or Spotify, please, leave us a rating so we can jump up in lists so other people like yourself can find us and be able to listen in and catch this good humor, good fun that we always deliver, I feel, on a weekly basis. And stay tuned to the end of our show, which is coming up in not too much time,
Dun, dun, dun.
more time. Stay tuned for the Mount Rushmore of promos. That's what we're going to be talking about. That's what our Mount Rushmore will be, is the Mount Rushmore of promos. Find out what it'll be exactly as far as who will be up there. All right, so let's talk now about the current state of the promo. And do you guys, should I kick this one off, or somebody else want to kick this one off as far as the current state of promos?
I mean,
Okay,
I'll go.
Oh, go ahead.
Let
Go ahead,
AJ do it.
I mean, I think we're like kind of at that point where I think me and Theo had this conversation, like not on a podcast, where they have a couple of guys that they fall back on now. They don't have a ton of people. Like I'm just kind of talking about WWE right now. They don't have an overabundance of people who are good on the mic. They have like 4 or 5 people, and they tend to fall back to them now when they need. Like, there goes my poster. Rollins.
Oh no.
Rollins is pretty
pretty.
difficult. These posters are falling off the wall.
Like, Rollins is pretty good. I mean, I personally think Owens is the best guy they have on the mic right now. So, but they fall back to like Owens and Rollins on Raw whenever they need promo work. They fall back to them, and they have AJ and one or two people on SmackDown. Mm-hmm. Believe it or not, NXT like doesn't really have a ton of guys. As much as I like NXT, I don't think they have a lot of people that are like really. Adam Cole's decent on the mic, but they don't have a ton of people there who are like fabulous. AEW's got people, but their two best people, one's really old and one's really young. They have Jericho and they have MJF. And that's kind of what, so a lot of these places kind of rely on a handful of people right now. They don't have tons of people to do it. They're relying on a couple of people to carry it.
So does that fall to the fact that, and we'll just regulate this to WWE? Is it because they don't trust people to actually go out there and be able to cut a good promo? Because they're like, we really just want you to say this kind of stuff, and they're scripting everything? Because I've listened to Jericho's podcast, I've listened to Stone Cold's podcast, I've listened to the people that had the guests that they've had on from different organizations when they leave WWE and they go to other places. The thing is the WWE scripts a lot. I mean, like 90% of the promo for these guys is scripted. So they evidently have a trust issue in the WWE to say, okay, we don't trust you to make sure that you talk about these certain things and actually say something that's going to be crowd invoking, funny, serious, get the crowd to do something, which is kind of sad because there are I think, in my opinion, the last time I watched, they have some really good people that could probably be really good on the mic, but because they script stuff so badly, that how can you make a script your own? Like, it's not your words, it's not your thoughts. It's hard to take a script and say, yes,
Theo,
this is the best thing ever.
Tell him what you told me when we had this discussion. Like, if you remember what you told me.
Here's my biggest issue. Like, so here we'll go. We'll just let's go, because I said like for like the 30th time already on this annual podcast.
But you like
God damn it, I hate saying that word so much. So when me and AG were talking about the other day, we were talking about this. I kind of feel that since Dusty passed away, Dusty was pushing a lot of people in NXT to be themselves and teaching them how to cut promos. Even when he was there, when they would get up to the main roster, we all know Vince has final fucking say, and the writers up there. So I felt like they were kind of giving them free reign to a certain extent, but they were still scripting 80%, 90% of the promos.
Yeah.
I feel like when Dusty passed away, I just feel that whoever's running NXT, as far as helping these young people with the promos, I think they're taking what they do on Raw and SmackDown and they're instilling it into NXT. Because you don't see... you have a guy named EC3 right now who we talked about this the other day. I started watching some old NXT stuff when it first started, like the 8 rookies and the 8 veterans, all that shit, and going to NXT Redemption when EC3 was first on there. And I kind of forget, there were some good people on NXT back in the day that kind of did good promos, and EC3 was doing good promos, like good shoots and interviews in the back, the segments. He was really good. He goes to TNA, makes himself even fucking better, comes back to WWE, and it's another waste. Like, he could be like a top heel right now. His wrestling's good. His promos are good. So it's, for whatever reason, they just dropped the ball with him. But I just feel that they know Seth Rollins is good on the mic. Owens is good on the mic. And they have maybe 1 or 2 other people that they feel comfortable on the mic that kind of do their own thing, per se. And they just keep falling back on them over and over and over again. It's kind of like with the wrestlers. They put Charlotte Flair in that same situation. They don't trust people, so we're going to put Charlotte Flair in all these programs, put the belt back on her again. It's the trust issue. And I don't feel that they want to develop anybody. They have people in NXT, and they have younger people who can actually do good promos, because I've seen some of these kids promos. I'm calling them kids, God. Some of these guys promos, excuse me, and the indie circuit. So I know these guys can cut a promo. Do they need to be fine-tuned and refined to a certain extent? Yes, but they need to kind of let them either pass or fail. And if you're not going to do it on NXT, then you sure in the hell ain't going to do it on fucking Raw and SmackDown. But you got to start somewhere.
So then
he needs to let loose and let Triple H or get somebody in there. Fucking hire somebody that's very good with promos and start the ball rolling. Because I watch TNA, I watch AEW, I still watch Ring of Honor. I watch I can't New Japan, but whatever. But I watch New Japan and Access, and I still watch it on a certain link that I watch New Japan overseas. I used to watch Lucha Underground when it was around. There were so many people out there in other organizations. All these people are cutting good promos, but yet WWE, the main company, still only relies on 4 fucking people, maybe 5, and everything else is like, we gotta do the script, we gotta change this. Can't say this tonight. Like, when the fuck are you gonna let these guys be themselves within their character?
And that leads me to this, where they take a guy like Drew McIntyre or Fat Ass, and they make these guys who are like big, strong guys that can be badasses. They try to make Drew McIntyre be funny, and I'm not buying the funny with him. And I'm not buying the funny with Fat Ass Keith Lee either. So they're not meant to be funny. don't force these guys to be funny. They've ruined Drew McIntyre to me because I'd rather see Drew McIntyre come out and be like, I'm a badass. I'm going to kick your ass. Blah, blah, blah. Be that heel face. Don't be the face where you're trying to make jokes and stuff because that's not really his character. And that's the same thing they're doing with Keith Lee. I think he's terrible on the mic. I don't think he has any charisma. So just let him come out and cut the stupid fat guy promo and wrestle and do what he does best. And they're just – that's another thing where they're messing up with characters. They're not letting them play the characters they should be. They're forcing their hand. I think other than Cena and Owens to some degree, and maybe Rollins, I think those are the only three guys that are probably – they say just go out and cut your promo.
Bray Wyatt we try thrown in there.
Okay, maybe Bray Wyatt.
Yeah, I would say Bray because his shit's all over the place too.
Right, because he goes out and does Ultimate Warrior nonsense sometimes, so they're like, just go say whatever crazy shit you're thinking right now.
And I don't like Bray either, but he does good promos too. He does some. He's on that cryptic crazy side too, but it's good captivating shit.
Other than those guys, I think those guys kind of have some free reign when they go out. Like I think Cena 100% has free reign.
Yeah. Most
of those guys probably have some free reign. I don't think they have complete free reign. I really think Brock and Heyman and Cena, The Rock when he's around, Cena and Heyman are probably the only people that are allowed to go out and say whatever they want without a script.
I think Miz does too. I think Miz has earned McMahon's trust to go out and do ad-lib promos for the most part.
And here's the big thing for me is even if a guy is not good at a promo right now, doesn't mean that he can't be.
Nope.
You're
right.
Charisma can't be taught. Either you have it or you don't, or you find a way to get it. Okay, you can't teach somebody charisma. But what you can teach them is Darth Pat evidently has a lot of charisma.
Okay. I love it.
He's oozing the charisma. Instead of machismo, he's oozing charisma.
The charisma, baby.
You don't get to be a Darth without having the ability to sway the crowd.
Oh.
But the big thing is if you, and this goes for anything, it's not just wrestling promos, it's anything in here. If you want somebody to learn how to do something right, you got to let them try it, fall on their fucking face, and learn from it. Because if you don't let them fall on their face and say, okay, this didn't fucking work, let me try something different tomorrow, the next day, next week, whatever it is, next time I get on TV, they're never going to be good at it. You're never going to be able to trust them to be able to go out in there and talk about the pay-per-view that's coming up, talk about their matches coming up, whatever it is that you want them to talk about, hit these bullet points. They're never going to be able to do it and be themselves and be able to win the crowd over unless you let them fall on their fucking face.
Edge and Christian are a really good example of somebody who had no mic skills or charisma at all when they were in the Brood, when they first and then all of a sudden they turn them heel. So they're like walking proof that you can. And another person that I thought this is a person that me and Joe talked about is Bayley. She was terrible on the mic. Even with Dusty helping her, she was terrible. Joe said she went out and got somebody out of wrestling to help her. And now she's not the best person on the mic, but she's not awful anymore. She's somewhat entertaining, and she's gotten to the point where her promos are, I actually look forward to seeing her promos, whereas 2 years ago, I was like, oh, here comes Bayley. This is probably going to be terrible.
She was a female version of John Cena with the promo skills.
Yeah. So Darth Pat, anything to add for current state of promos?
Yeah, they suck. No, but there's a couple things that you guys have already said that I kind of want to just build on a little bit. AJ mentioned the way that they kind of change characters when they feel like that they have to turn them face, especially. And you mentioned, McIntyre and Reigns, and I think Strowman could fit into that group a little bit as well. The reason they got over and that the audience started cheering them is because they were badasses. It's because they kicked ass and took names. It wasn't because they were cracking jokes. Now, I'm not saying they can't crack jokes from time to time, but I think they'd be much better served if they didn't change their characters so much to the point where it sounded forced. We all remember when Reigns did the whole "suffer and succotash" line. So yeah. So that's the kind of that kind of shit right there is annoying as hell. And you guys have been talking about it too, as far as that they have promo class. if you're going to give these people like a script and say, like, this is what you have to say, then what's really the point of promo class? Just to make sure that they can talk? I mean,
Pretty
there's
much.
there's ways you can do that without having like a promo class. I mean, it's like, so, but also isn't I haven't seen some of those behind the scenes things, but in those promo classes, don't they basically say, cut me a promo? They don't give them a script. They say, cut me a promo.
Right. They do.
So if you're saying cut me a promo, and then they bring them to the main roster, and it's like, hey, here's a 2.5-page script that you've got to memorize, and you've got to say these lines exactly. What the fuck's the point? And here's another thought that I had. We talked about Edge a few times here. When he came back this year, if you were to like have like a ranking of like, hey, here's our best promo guys, 1 to whatever. So the moment he came back, he's already in the top 5.
He is.
Higher, quite frankly. Do you honestly think that for any promo that he cut since he came back, they gave him a script?
No.
Or conversely, that if they gave him a script, he actually read it? I mean,
yeah,
it would be the same thing as like when Austin came back for his appearance on that March 16th episode and everything. It's like, do you think somebody tried to hand Austin lines?
Yeah, it's not gonna happen.
It's so ridiculous, and it's like Jeremy said, you gotta let people sink or swim at some point. You gotta let them do it on their own. And I think it's great that they don't try to script Bray Wyatt. He's obviously doing his own stuff because he's the only person who can come up with it. I think they've said like Pritchard works with him and stuff like that, but that's obviously got to be mostly Bray. And just kind of one final point I want to make here, since I know we are probably want to get to wrapping this up. I saw a story on one of the blogs that I follow that said that Edge and Daniel Bryan have supposedly joined the writing team.
I saw that.
Considering that I think those are two of the better guys in the company right now with the ability to actually cut a promo, I'm kind of hoping that means that maybe they'll get some better perspective from like the wrestler side of it.
I hope so.
And they can maybe tell some of these writers, you don't know how to write a fucking wrestling promo, let us handle it. Something like that. You just, at this point, I think when you see something like that, it's almost like, one, it's an admission that they know that they need to improve, and 2, that you're hopeful that maybe it can. But again, like was also said, Vince has the final say, and
yeah,
I just increasingly think that Vince just doesn't get it anymore. So
Stephanie's right up there too with having a final say too, because from everything I've heard, and I don't know how true it is, but everything I've heard, Stephanie's the one that gets the writers to hand the scripts to the wrestlers, which is kind of scary.
She's supposedly the head of creative, last I knew. So I mean,
yeah,
that is pretty sad, because while Stephanie is somebody else I don't think we ever really talked about in terms of mic skills, there's been times where she's been good, and there's been times, of course, when you just want her to shut up, and that's sometimes just because she came off as being too screechy and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Sort of. Again, the fact that she's like the head of creative, I don't know what she majored in college, but I don't think it was like, the arts or theater or creative writing or anything like that. I think it was like communications or government. So, yeah,
So the best, like, and I like Kevin Owens, but the best 6 or 7 month promo stuff I've seen was when Owens and Jericho were together in WWE in the last 5 years. That was the best stuff. Whether I'm a mark or not, it's not just me, it's a lot of people. That was the best 6 or 7 month period WWE's had in the last 5 years. And they just put the two of them together on a whim. And that was the best example of lightning in a bottle I've seen in a really long time, was that. And those two ended up being fabulous together. And then they, unfortunately ruined that with Goldberg beating Kevin Owens to some degree. But that was the best 6 months or 7 months of promo stuff I've seen from 1 or 2 people in the last 5 years, was that stint when Owens had the Universal title.
And you just made the list.
The list is fucking just awesome.
Oh my God. How did we forget about Goldberg when we were talking about good mic people?
Oh my gosh.
I think he was on the other list that you were trying to come up with.
Yes.
People that had a lot of mic time but didn't have anything to say.
You're right.
See,
Yeah.
I don't know if I would ever classify Goldberg as having had a lot of mic time.
No,
to
he
be honest.
didn't.
They kept him silent most of the
I'm-
time, which frankly was the best thing. I mean,
Right. I'm pretty sure they knew that it was better to not give him a mic.
Right. He's like the whole like McIntyre Reigns Strowman thing I just said, where he got over because he was an ass kicker, and that's what people wanted to see him do. And like, and he even said that like when he had his first WWE run back in 2003, and they did that one really bad promo with him and Goldust and everything. Nobody wanted to see Goldberg have feelings. They just wanted to see Goldberg kick people's ass.
You know what, Pat? You were, even though I don't like Strowman, you were kind of right when you put Strowman in that category. They've tried to make Strowman funny too, and I just don't think that that's him.
See, I actually think it works
Terrible.
Hands.
when they try to do the humor. I actually think it works a little bit better with Strowman than it does with Reigns or McIntyre, as an example. But at the same time, it's like, dude, he's huge. He kicks people's ass. Just let him do that.
And it sucks with
Can he flip a
McIntyre
bus over
because-
for us?
Yeah, I mean McIntyre can cut good promos. He cut a ton of good promos in TNA.
Yeah.
So there's no reason why.
You can be a tough
pull the
guy and be a
reins.
face. You can be a tough guy and be a face.
Yeah.
But all right.
He's
So with that being said, let's move into the final segment of the night. And that, well, it's not actually the final segment, but we are ready for the Stumper. Dum dum dum.
Oh,
Stumper
shit.
question time. So
There's
Theo,
no stumper this week.
there's no Stumper this week. Oh,
As you can tell, fans, we pre-plan these podcasts to the T.
The
So we were
stumper
stumped by
is
the
not
stumper.
this week. Yes, you were. That's the stumper for the week.
Mount Rushmore.
So a curveball was thrown to us. There will be no Stumper question this week. Hopefully next week we will come back with a terrific Stumper question that I won't be able to answer once again.
I will
Okay.
have a stumper net for.
Okay.
So
All right.
we're good.
That gives me time to come up with a cool logo and some kind of theme music, maybe. So let's move on to our last segment. And as always, the end of our show, Mount Rushmore. It is time for Mount Rushmore. And today's Mount Rushmore is going to be our greatest wrestling promo that we've
Favorite.
So, greatest wrestling promo or favorite wrestling promo of all time that we have got to hear. Maybe we saw it live, but most likely it was probably televised that we saw it at some point in time. Well, mine definitely is, and when you guys get to hear that, definitely did not see that live. But who wants to kick it off for the Mount Rushmore of favorite
ahead, Jeremy.
promo of all time? Oh,
Go
you want me
ahead,
to kick it off?
Jeremy.
Your finger, and I'm like, it's actually funny because you're in
Jeremy.
the bottom right corner of my screen, and your finger's right at Jeremy. I was like, oh, that's-
Yeah.
Okay.
Let
So
Jeremy
I
go
will
first.
kick it off. So I'm gonna go a little old school. Now, my friends that know me, guys doing this podcast with me, know I'm a big rock mark, but I am not picking a rock promo. I am not going that route. Even though I could pick probably 10 different rock promos that would be my, best of all time for him. I am actually gonna go, like I said, old school, and I am going to go with Dusty Rhodes' Hard Times promo. Now, if you're a wrestling fan and you ever watched wrestling back in, that promo was in the early 80s. That was probably, at the time of promos, that was probably one of the greatest promos of that time, if not one of the greatest promos still to this day. He was able to, without yelling and screaming, without making fun of anybody, able to invoke such great emotion out of a crowd of people because he related his character, which was the blue collar wrestler, to the blue collar worker, which is probably especially at that point in time, probably 99% of the crowd was a blue collar person.
Yes.
Everywhere they went, was the blue collar worker. So being able to relate his character, his promo to that group, and he's fighting Ric Flair at the time, if I remember correctly. He's fighting Ric Flair, who's the highfalutin playboy, $1 million guy. And, we're on hard times, baby.
I love
Like
that promo.
just it's an amazing promo. Like that promo, if you are a blue collar worker or even any kind of person, you can feel like his emotion come through that promo, it hits you in the heart, and you're like, oh my god, like this guy, there's no way he's a wrestler making millions of dollars or even $100,000 a year. Like he's probably making ends meet as a wrestler. Like he's going through the worst times of his life. Even though you can look back in retrospect and go, no, he probably was not making. He doesn't make what these guys make now, but he definitely wasn't hurting. But it's one of those promos that didn't have to be funny. It was more on the serious side, but just such an amazing promo for that time. And to compare it to now, the promos now, it still holds weight against any promo out there. It really does. So that's my pick. Dusty Rhodes Hard Time promo.
Hold on. Another thing about Dusty right here. Can you hear that? Yeah. Some great theme music right there, guys.
It is.
And we're dancing, a little bit of dancing.
John
Need my sweet sapphire. Need the sweet sapphire.
And who could rock polka dots?
Yeah, I know.
Come on, people.
Only
Who could
Dusty.
rock the polka dots,
Only Dusty.
man?
So,
Man.
I'm going to throw it to Darth Pat for promo. What promo is your favorite promo of all time?
Mean Gene, the first thing you got to understand is you people to shut up if you want to hear what I got to say.
Okay, I think we know where you're going with this.
And with those words, wrestling literally changed forever. Because even though he had been a heel, of course, the very beginning of his career in the WWF and AWA,
Mm-hmm.
nobody remembered that by 1996.
Hell no.
I mean, I remember it like this. I remember when Hall and Nash came into WCW, and of course, they kept talking about the third man and everything, but I was not ordering pay-per-views at that point. But I kept
watching it.
But I kept saying to myself, because of the fact that Hogan hadn't been there for a couple of months, I think he was like off filming one of those shitty B movies. I at 15 years old, I was saying to myself, wouldn't it be something if Hogan was the third guy? But I was like, no, they won't do that. They can't do that. And then they did it. And the promo that he cut, I mean, you could tell it pissed obviously you knew it pissed the fans off because the way they were throwing shit, the way they tried to jump to the ring and everything. I mean,
that dude got stomped.
Yeah, that's what he should have. But you go back and you watch some of the stuff from the Southern Territories in the early '80s. Fans try to do that actually pretty frequently, which is kind of scary when you think about
somebody
it.
tried to do it at the Hall of Fame, so a year and a half ago.
Yeah, exactly. So, but there was probably scripted lines in that promo. And obviously, he messed up a couple times by saying New World Organization instead of New World Order. I mean,
nice.
they begin with the same first two letters, and they mean basically the same thing in a lot of ways. So it's like, whatever. But at the same time, what made that promo really so great was that you really could feel that he was actually kind of speaking from the heart. Like I was talking earlier about how he was getting booed all of a sudden there. And he was kind of getting booed in like his last couple WWF appearances in '92 and '93 as well. Like if you remember, like when Sid threw him out of the Rumble in '92, there was a lot of people cheering. So, I think there was a lot of like from the heart. Like he was just finally being able to say, "I've done all this. I told your kids to follow the right path, and you've got the gall to boo me. Stick it." So. Mm-hmm. I really feel like there was actually like a lot of really like a lot of realism in there. As much as any Hogan promo could have realism, because obviously he was only playing an otherworldly character really when he was in the red and yellow, and even then when he fully became Hollywood Hogan and everything, a lot of the stuff that he said in his promos could still be pretty convoluted and everything. But I mean that promo really just changed everything.
That's WCW's shining moment that night. I think that's like WCW's shining moment.
Well, and think about it too. Again, it's like, okay, so like Raw and Nitro had been kind of sort of, going back and forth, both in terms of like quality and like who was like winning the ratings for like the first, like, what was it, like 7-8 months that Nitro was on the air. But if Hogan doesn't turn heel and the NWO doesn't form, there is no Monday Night War.
There is not.
There probably is no DX. There probably is no Attitude Era, because it forced Vince to change things. I mean, like Vince could have kept going down like the whole cartoony path that the years of like say like 94 to 96
Right.
in WWE largely were. So, that's why it's the most significant, but it is also my favorite because again, it is, it's the moment, Anakin becomes Darth Vader, basically.
Yeah.
I will say for like that to me, like the promo is really good too. So the historical significance of that moment is big, but the promo is actually good too because somewhere down the road we're going to get into the stuff where I think there are matches that are remembered for historical significance but aren't really good matches. That promo is a really good promo, so it lives up to the moment that like it's the greatest heel turn. It's probably the greatest heel promo of all time. As much as I like The Rock's heel promos and this guy and that guy, that's probably the greatest heel promo of all time. And when the fans are throwing that much shit in the ring, you're clearly doing something right.
And to think that Sting was the original person that
Right.
Bischoff was thinking about to be the third person, I don't think it would have worked nearly as
I don't think it would have either.
It wouldn't have worked with Sting, like Scott Hall said, no disrespect to Sting, it had to be a guy who had come from WWF. And of course, you've heard some of these rumors that have like popped up over the newsletters over the years, like, oh, at one point it was supposed to be Davey Boy Smith, and at one point it was supposed to be Mabel.
I highly doubt any of that shit.
It's just like, no, I don't think so.
So to educate me a little bit, that promo took place when? I know the promo, but I don't remember when it took place.
It was Bash at the Beach, 1996, so it was July
Of 96.
I want to say 9th or 10th. It was July 1996.
So it was like Pat said, it was like a month after Austin's 316 King of the Ring promo.
All right. So
Go ahead, Dio.
Oh, okay.
Oh.
Going next.
He was expecting to go last.
No, I just didn't know. Just waiting for someone to tell me. Fuck you guys. Whatever. So my guy is from my hometown of Chicago. Mr. CM Punk. His pipe bomb on Raw. I think one of the greatest promos ever, due to the fact that it was probably 95% real. You want to talk about someone who was pissed off about politics in the back, politics with, I'm going to say upper management. That's pretty much what Vince and Triple H and all the rest of them are, based off their titles. The realism of that was going on in the back about storylines, pushes, who was getting pushed, who wasn't, things of that nature, just everything. It's kind of funny because I think it was I don't remember, and this was sucks. I don't remember if the contract signing was before or after the pipe bomb. I don't remember which one was first, but there was a contract signing in the ring with Vince that CM Punk had. And that was another one that was he was pretty real with Vince in the ring, which kind of surprised me as well.
I remember that.
I know a lot of people praise Punk for that promo. It kind of changed promos in a way too, and how the indies did promos and how they kind of did storylines too, to kind of put those storylines in the aspect of, not just the old school Austin versus McMahon type of shit or Bret Hart versus McMahon, but more real life type of promos in the indies to use that type of promo for storylines and whatnot. And I think there was a lot of people that felt the way he did. And, he was, I always thought of him as being like a rebel to a certain extent, because people didn't like when he was brought into WWE. He was sent to the reincarnated ECW pretty much to fucking fail. And Paul Heyman kind of was like, no, there's something with this kid. He actually had a really good promo when I used to watch ROH back in the day too, when he used to wrestle there. I had the quote up there, part of the promo he did there. He said, "The greatest thing the devil ever did was make you people believe he didn't exist. And you're looking at him right now. I'm the devil himself, and all of you are stupid, mindless people who fell for it. Like, he was cutting really good promos back in the day in ROH. He had some good promos too in TNA when Raven was there, and they were doing like a Raven's Flock version in TNA that didn't last very long. But I just feel, even though he had Heyman with him, which I always liked those two together, but it was very odd for those two to be together since they were very good on the mic together, individually. But I think it kind of worked, and I think his promos were, I doubt he really had anything scripted, even when he was with the
definitely not
the straight edge society thing going on. I think a lot of those promos were pretty much 98% he was just doing it, and 2% they were just kind of like he was just saying whatever they wanted to fucking have him say in the back. But that was my favorite. I mean, they turned the mic off on him. The mic goes back on, and they just let him roll. I mean, he has good quotes from that, like memorable quote from that. I like to think that maybe this company will be better off after Vince McMahon is dead. But the fact is, it's going to be taken over by his idiotic daughter and his doofus son-in-law and the rest of that stupid family. Like, that's like when he said that, the crazy thing about when he says that in his promo, I'm watching it live, I'm stopped, I'm like, fuck. Has he got a point? Because we know Stephanie and Shane are just like just like their dad. I really didn't understand or know what Triple H was really doing in the back and whatnot either. It's like, wow, is he just being like a fucking clone of the McMahon family? And wow, he's really got a point. And to be honest with you, I mean, he does when it comes to Vince, but Triple H has kind of shown he's more with the times.
He didn't know then, though. I mean, at the time, Triple H probably was a lackey more than anything else. So at that time, that may have been true. Obviously, Triple H has way more sense than any of the people in that family.
I mean, Triple H has brought people back that we never thought we would see back in WWE, and he's the one that's orchestrating that stuff. But I think the other thing too with that promo with the contract, he was talking about, I don't remember all of it, but he's like, I'm gonna end Cena, I'm gonna end this title, I'm gonna take this title with me, and I'm leaving as well, or whatever the case might be. It was just another very real promo. I just felt like Punk's promos were very real. I never really felt like they were really scripted at all. And he was just kind of doing his own type of thing. And I think Heyman was kind of sticking up for him and being like, hey, just let the kid run because he knows what the fuck he's doing. So that's mine. CM Punk's pipe bomb back in 2011. Yeah, 2011.
Real quick. The contract signing you were referring to, is that the one where he demanded the WWE ice cream bars come back? I
think it might have been, yeah.
That was 2 weeks after the pipe bomb, if I'm reading these results.
Yeah, because I couldn't remember what was first, the contract signing or the pipe bomb. But that was another crazy promo as well that was ad-libbed and realistic.
If I may, sir, AJ. CM Punk beats everybody with the Anaconda Vice in 5 seconds. You're fired, Paul.
All right, go ahead, AJ. What is your favorite promo of all time?
There's lots of promos I could pick, but I have to pick a Rock promo because he is I'm speaking from my mind on this, not anybody else on the podcast. He is the best person on the mic of all time, and if there's anybody that doesn't think that, they're crazy. They're clueless at this point. He is the Michael Jordan of the microphone. That's what I like to call The Rock at this point. So I'm going to pick the infamous Jericho Rock Booker T promo. And I think it's suitable because Jericho's also in it. And I also think Jericho is one of the greatest guys I've ever seen on the mic, too. So we are going to go with the Thomas Jefferson sucker promo. And the thing about that promo is a lot of times when you go on YouTube, they start with The Rock talking to Booker T, but there's actually about 7 or 8 minutes of that promo before The Rock even comes out where Chris Jericho is making fun of Stephanie's enhanced breasts.
Yes.
So like that.
You can't have that now in the beginning.
Everybody forgets about that part of it. So like that part is great. Then The Rock comes out and we get the, Booker, you took the short bus, beep, beep. We get and Booker, what is 2 + 2? Thomas Jefferson, sucker.
That shit's funny. I like that line.
And then after that, we further get some rhyme time with Jericho and The Rock. We get the Man Beast and the Hose Beast. And we get the infamous Rock calling Shane the Silver Spoon motherfucker. And they actually had to beep out fuck. And not too many people have tried to push the envelope with WWE and say fuck. So The Rock essentially got away with saying fuck. And the first time I saw it, I go back and I watch that promo over and over, and I'm like, this is fucking great. Like the writing, thank you, Booker T, for letting them make you look like a complete idiot.
Oh, yeah, because doesn't he call Booker T the punk ass sucker, and then he goes into Shane McMahon the silver spoon motherfucker.
And well, he has another line before that where he's like, hair done by Whoopi. And Jericho's like, oh, this is a rhyming contest. So, and you get to see The Rock and Jericho together instead of promoting against each other. And it's just like those two were so good on the mic that it was really cool to see the two of them together promoting on people. And Stephanie is so mad. Like, and then I even think after the Booker T stuff, they talk about, The Rock's like, we're going to go all around the world. And if we get stuck in the water, Stephanie's got flotation devices. She's got handmaids. So they even keep it going after that. And they're funny. And they're just, that promo's so entertaining from the funny standpoint. And I had to pick a Rock promo because he's the guy that we're never going to see somebody with that much charisma ever again. It'll happen. Probably not in our lifetime. That guy is the definition of charisma.
Yeah, and with that, in that promo, it got him over as like the super baby face, and put Booker T. I don't know why the hell I said Booker, but anyway, puts Booker T and Rhino as the evident heel. Like, that's what a really good promo does. Sets the two apart. Says, I'm the face and you're the heel. And everybody's going to know that by the end of this. No matter how they figure it out, they're going to know.
What were you going to say, Pat?
Well, I was going to say, it only took Booker T about 1.5 years to recover from that promo. Seriously, because like after Rock beat him to win the WCW title, basically Booker T got, in my view, was various degrees of being buried until he started the program with Triple H at WrestleMania 19, where he also got buried. But that's another subject.
Oh, they don't bury WCW guys now. Come on.
But the Booker T did have some really great promo stuff with him and Goldust. Some of that stuff was freaking priceless.
It was.
Yeah,
absolutely
it was.
Really great. So that brings us to, well, we got to wrap up, of course, Mount Rushmore. So Mount Rushmore this week is Dusty Rhodes' Hard Time, Hogan, Bash at the Beach, 1996, CM Punk's Pipe Bomb, and The Rock, Thomas Jefferson Sucker promo. Emphasis on the sucker.
Sucker.
So really great Mount Rushmore again. And like we said a bunch of times, there are so many great promos out there. These are the best.
It's hard to pick one.
Yeah, it's hard to pick one. So we put the best of what we felt were the best out of, we span a couple different generations here. So good stuff. Brings us to the end of our show. Once again, we thank everybody that has tuned in and listened, watched, no matter where you're getting it, iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, YouTube, wherever you're getting it. We appreciate you guys, watching and listening because, that's what we're here for. We're here for you guys, and we have fun doing it, as you can tell. We hope you're having fun. We will be back next week. No more taking off. We will be back next week. And next week, like I said the week before, we are doing Star Wars, the prequels, episode 1, 2, and 3. So that ought to be fun because we all have, not the greatest opinion of those movies, even though we're great Star Wars geeks. So tune in for that episode next week on Monday. As always, We'll talk to you then. Love yous. See yous. Peace out.